Welcome back to Up the Villa podcast. If you are new to our channel, make sure you are subscribing, smash a like and comment your thoughts in the comment section down below. So I have stumbled across an article from the Financial Times of an interview from our owner Nassefsawiris regarding PSR and Aston Villa's spending. So I thought it was interesting that I'll bring you this article and we can go through it and we can have a look of what has been said from our owner regarding PSR. So we're going with the Financial Times and the headline of Aston Villa owner calls for overhaul of Premier League spending rules. Billionaire nassefsawiris lambasts opaque penalties faced by clubs for breaches and says the system cements the status quo. He is not wrong there. And one of the big talkaway and takeaway points from this is that he was seeking legal advice on whether to lodge a formal complaint against the Premier League. Now, we already know that Manchester City have already done this, and we know that last week Aston Villa were aiding on the side of Manchester City, and you can see why we were doing that. So Aston Villa, nassefsawiris, he is friends with Khaldoon at Man City, the chairman of Man City. So it's going to be interesting to see how that one pans out with the Premier League, etc., dictating what certain teams can value certain sponsorship deals at and how that one all pans out. So let's go through the article then. The billionaire owner of Aston Villa has called for an overhaul of the Premier League's rule book on spending, complaining that the current system had turned English football into a financial game. Nassefsawiris, Egypt's richest man, said existing regulations governing what clubs can spend were preventing ambitious owners from challenging the established elite, and the system of penalties for breaking the rules lacked transparency. So, you know, we've got an ambitious man, an ambitious owner that wants to spend money for the good of his football club, and he can't because of certain PSR rules limiting and dictating what a certain club can spend. So Sawiris, who owns Birmingham team Aston Villa alongside US private equity billionaire Wes Edens, also described the Premier League's so-called profit and sustainability rules as anti-competitive and said he was seeking legal advice on whether to lodge a formal complaint against them. Some of the rules have actually resulted in cementing the status quo more than creating upward mobility and fluidity in sport, he told the Financial Times. The rules do not make sense and are not good for football. The Premier League is the most watched domestic competition in the world football, generating billions of pounds in TV revenue and making it a magnet for private equity firms, sovereign wealth funds and billionaires such as Sawiris. But the increasing dominance on the pitch of Man City has undermined the league's reputation for competitiveness and led to an increased debate over how it is run. The Northern English club, owned by Abu Dhabi Sheikh Mansour, has won 4 titles in a row, a Premier League record, while also being subject to 115 allegations of financial rule breaches over a period of 7 years. Several rival clubs, Everton and Nottingham Forest, both slapped with points deductions for exceeding allowed financial losses, have also criticised the rules. Sawiris said regulations limiting how much clubs can lose over a 3-year period brought in to prevent reckless overspending has instead created some perverse incentives for owners, such as encouraging investment into music venues to boost non-sporting revenue or prioritising homegrown players to maximise accounting profits. Quote from Sawiris: managing a sports team has become more like a treasurer or a bean counter rather than looking at what your team needs, he said. It's more about creating paper profits, not real profits. It becomes a financial game, not a sporting game. Aston Villa finished 4th in the Premier League this season, just finished qualifying for the lucrative UEFA Champions League, but the club has been losing money in pursuit of on-field success, even as it rapidly increases revenues. In 2022-23, Villa swung a net loss of roughly around 120 million. So what else have we got? Let's scan through this. Have we got anything else of information to talk about? Okay, here we go. So Sawiris complained financial regulations that incentivises sales of homegrown talent in effect penalises a club's loyalty and commitment to their own young players. Selling an academy player valued at zero in the books because of the accounting rules allows the club to book an immediate profit. However, management can spend the proceeds on new players but spread the cost of several years of accounts. This obvious flaw is a detriment of the fans. The league's spending rules were designed to prevent clubs from going bust by limiting losses of 105 over 3 seasons. Sawiris complained the system had failed to keep up with inflation since being introduced in 2013, and the decision-making process for dictating penalties and breaches were opaque and seemingly arbitrary. He said the Premier League is facing legal challenge from Man City, which claims the rules on related party sponsorship and other transactions are unfair and anti-competitive. English football is about preparing for the introduction of the independent regulator, which will be given powers to oversee certain financial aspects of the game. So Sawiris is very frustrated by this, which I can imagine that he is. I can imagine that, you know, getting into the Champions League, it's the pinnacle of English football. And we know with Douglas Luiz and this deal that, you know, we've got this hanging over us and we're having to move around, we're having to wriggle around, we're having to see what deals we can do in order to stay within these rules. So, you know, it's interesting there that he was prepared to look at taking legal action. I imagine the fact that Man City are has probably meant that he's now not got to do that. But, you know, I just wanted to bring you this because I think it's important to know what the owners feel of this situation as well. Some other interesting news regarding swap deals has sort of been doing the rounds. And what it's basically meaning is within PSR, if you were to sell a player, so we'll use the Douglas Luiz for an example. Douglas Luiz goes for 30 million. We then bring in Weston McKennie as a player that comes in from that club that we're signing that Luiz is going to. The value of that player coming in counts towards the PSR picture and the value of that deal. So, for example, just because McKennie potentially comes in and we think, oh, we're only getting 30 million for Luiz, if Ealing Jr. and McKennie come in, their fees combined of what they're worth add to the whole transfer summary of that given deal. So if it's Luiz, McKennie, Ealing Jr., and that deal is worth 60 million, £60 million goes on the books for PSR. So I think that is something important to note as well, that the rumours doing the rounds now are that given deal could potentially work as well. So it's interesting. It's unfortunate. My episode yesterday didn't actually go down that bad, to be fair. So fair play for the comments, to be fair. So, yeah, but I thought I'd just bring you this article so we can get a good idea of what the owners actually think of what's going on as well. So this article was from the Financial Times. So if you want to go back through and have a read, you can do as well. But I thought some of you might not see that article, so I'll come on and show you the article, basically. So cheers, everyone. Up the Villa.